Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Reports of allegation of misconduct against an unnamed senator were sent to the Senate Ethics Committee yesterday. Is the scandal-plagued House crossing the aisle into the U.S. Senate? We have what we know for you in today's show. A group of House Republicans defied President Donald Trump yesterday to support shielding more than 350,000 Haitian nationals from deportation. We have that update, too. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette is with us to talk about next week's gubernatorial debate in Charleston and some of the legislative priorities in the final weeks of the session. Also, South Carolina Representative John McCravey will join us later in the show to give us his perspective on wrapping up the legislative session and a big win for common sense.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So has the scandal moved over from the House to the U.S. Senate? Do they have some of their own problems? Allegations of misconduct against an unnamed senator were sent to the Senate Ethics Committee on Thursday. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, she's a Republican from Florida, made the announcement on X, but the nature of the allegations and who they're against is very unclear. Fox News Digital reported that they had reached out for comment from Luna's office but did not hear back. Ms. Luna wrote, "It seems like the Senate has its own trash to take out. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, you need to look into the allegations against one of your senators. It's very disturbing. My chief will be contacting your chief." Thune confirmed his office had, in fact, received information yesterday. He said, "I don't know what the particulars are about this. I have not. All I know is that we referred it to the proper authorities, which in this case would be the Senate Ethics Committee." Senator James Langford from Oklahoma, a Republican, who chairs the ethics panel, he too declined to comment on Ms. Luna's post and said, "I talk zero about ethics." So we don't know much about anything other than ethics complaints have been filed. Now, when asked if lawmakers have strayed from the massive overhaul of sexual harassment reporting and accountability procedures that was passed by Congress in 2018, Senator Langford said, no, none of that's changed on his ethics panel. He said, we still do our work as we always have. But it just kind of opens up a whole nother can of worms, doesn't it? Because in general, people just do not trust members of the U.S. House of Representatives and members of the U.S. Senate. And with all the scandal that has been in the national headlines over these past few weeks, and this week especially, with Eric Swalwell not only stepping aside from his gubernatorial ambitions, but also resigning his seat in the House. Representative Gonzalez also leaving the House. Others, we're told, are in the works. Now, is the U.S. Senate about to join that little party? Typically, and some people probably would challenge this, typically you kind of place senators a little bit higher on the pedestal, don't you? Because you just don't hear as much about this type of scandal in the U.S. Senate. Now, maybe it's because their numbers are fewer. Maybe there's always something to be said about the sheer numbers in the U.S. House, over 400 plus members, with the Senate just having 100 members. So I guess maybe if you're a mathematician, the odds of it happening in the Senate are probably less. But regardless, in historically, the U.S. Senate has been held to a little bit higher standard. Now, Ms. Luna's allegations come in the wake of, of this hashtag MeToo movement that is reappearing its ugly head in the U.S. House of Representatives. Former Representative Eric Swalwell, as you know, we talked about it here on the show, resigned this past Tuesday from the House shortly after ending his gubernatorial campaign. This after a bombshell report from the San Francisco Chronicle that the ex-lawmaker allegedly sexually assaulted a former staffer. That report, as quite often these types of things typically do, led to multiple additional allegations. Since the report, 5 other women have stepped forward and accused Mr. Swalwell of sexual misconduct and, in a couple of cases, rape. Now, he has repeatedly denied the allegations. He is vowing to fight back against them. Senator Ruben Gallego from Arizona, who was close friends with Mr. Swalwell, but has vehemently denied any knowledge of his alleged activities, said lawmakers need to go back and make the 2018 revamp of conduct and reporting rules better. I don't know if it's the reporting rules or if it's just their behavior. Senator Gallego said because clearly there's holes in this, or number 2, that we haven't created an environment through the legislation to make women, especially staffers, feel that they could come and talk to somebody and not have any repercussions. Now, not all of the people accusing Swalwell are staffers. It just started with a staffer. Swalwell, of course, again, not the only lawmaker to exit. Former Representative Tony Gonzalez from Texas also resigned from Congress this week after he admitted to having an affair with a former staffer who later died by setting herself on fire. He has not acknowledged a second allegation of sexual misconduct. So we'll see. Maybe it's moved over to the Senate. Hopefully it hasn't. Hopefully these are isolated cases. We will get them cleaned up and move on, because it's very embarrassing when you have leaders at this level be accused of these type things. Now, on to another story. Conservatives on social media just literally erupted with outrage yesterday after Democrat lawmakers in Minnesota united to block a Republican effort to investigate further and impeach Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison. A resolution taken up by the Minnesota House Rules and Legislative Administration Committee to launch an impeachment investigation and to allow the committee to hold hearings, to issue subpoenas, and further investigate this massive fraud scandal, it was blocked after all 8 Democrats on the committee voted against it. The lawmakers deadlocked 8-8 on a straight party line vote. Minnesota Democrat Farmer Labor Party Representative Michael Howard said this is a fundamentally unserious proposal by a fundamentally unserious party who isn't interested in governing. Gas prices are rising because of Trump's illegal war in Iran. Healthcare, housing, and child care costs are spiking. We have hospitals closing. Yet this is what we're going to do today? A bill that's absolutely going nowhere, dead on arrival. So he is more concerned with his list of talking points against Donald Trump than the absolute crookedness, the scandal, the fraud that is happening in his own state. On social media, conservatives blasted the Minnesota Democrats for not taking seriously this unfolding scandal. It's estimated to cost taxpayers $19 billion, and he's talking about gas prices. He's talking about health care, housing, and child care costs. Think about how much child care costs can potentially be increased in Minnesota and around the country because of this fraud. Minnesota House Fraud Committee Chair, Representative Kristen Robbins, she's a Republican. She's running for governor, too, by the way, posted on X, despite years of whistleblower reports, dozens of hearings and local news stories, and court convictions, Democrats continue to block any investigation of Tim Walz. They protect each other to protect their political base. Amy Klobuchar is just part of the protection racket. And she's right. I mean, they are protecting their own. Town hall columnist Dustin Grage posted on X, Minnesotans lost $9 billion in taxpayer dollars to just 14 Medicaid programs under Tim Walz's administration. Today, every single Democrat in Rules Committee voted to block an investigation into that fraud. Absolutely disgusting, and it is disgusting. Derek Van Orden, a Republican from Wisconsin, look at their campaign contributions. Another post on X by conservative influencer Eric Doherty. They panicked and don't want anyone finding out how this was allowed to happen. Remove Walz from office and start the criminal proceedings for complicity. They're not going to do anything because they don't care. They're too consumed with Trump derangement syndrome to actually clean up something that's real in their own backyards. You don't have a weight problem. You have a body that's in survival mode, and no medication, crash diet, or app is going to fix that. Joey Hudson here, Ozempic, Wegovy. These GLP-1 drugs are exploding in popularity, and for some, they're a useful tool, but they don't address why your body started storing fat in the first place. At PhD Weight Loss, they treat the unwanted weight as a symptom, a signal that your metabolism, hormones, and stress response need some attention. When they correct those, the weight comes off naturally, and more importantly, it stays off. Because they're not just helping you lose weight, they're helping you increase health span and extend longevity. Right now, call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson. You'll get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food. That's a $1,500 value, completely free. Call 864-644-1900. Do it right now. Mention Joey Hudson. Again, that's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. No more guessing, no more short-term fixes, just a smarter way forward. As we head into the final stretch of this year's legislative session in Columbia, you can feel the sense of urgency picking up. Lawmakers working to get key priorities across the finish line before time runs out. Joining us now to break it all down in the what's happening in the House of Representatives is State Representative John McCravey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Joey. How are you?
I am good. Do you feel like you are making some progress as we enter these last few weeks?
You know, I think we finally are. I think things are happening. Good things are happening. On Wednesday, we passed out the Student Privacy Act finally. You know, this was a bill that we've been trying to get passed for years now, and we finally did it. It's going to be on the way to the governor for his signature now. But we had a situation, we had biological males in women's restrooms in schools and higher education, and it happened over and over again. We got complaints about it. I got a complaint about, Tri-County Tech, where a man was dressing up as a vampire and going into women's restrooms.
Wow.
So, this stuff has got to stop, and we've been trying to pass it. The Family Caucus made this a priority years ago. And so April Cromer and others have been pushing that bill. We all sponsored it, and she got it going, and we finally got the bill passed, and it went to the Senate, and we concurred on that bill. So from now on, it'll be against the law for these what I would call unbalanced people to be invading women and girls' bathrooms.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about this is all of us have said all along, this is just common sense. Why are we having to pass this bill? Well, 31 Democrats voted against this bill.
Wow.
So I'm just telling you, this is not cut and dried anymore. And we've got a Democratic Party that apparently doesn't mind men using women's restrooms. So we had to pass the bill. So I hate it's that way in our society now. Some crazy place like some of these states.
Yeah, it is just hard to believe that a state like South Carolina has to pass such a thing because, as you said, it's just common sense. Now, the opponents, the ACLU and some of those groups, say that this measure discriminates against transgender and non-binary students. Well, what do you say to that?
Well, I say that, look, you can try to change your sex, but it's a lie. You have a biological sex, and that's what you're born with. And you can't change your DNA. You can mutilate yourself. You can dress like somebody else, but you're not. And so we've got to look out for the women and girls in our state, and, we got to protect them. So, a lot of these people, some of them are predators. I mean, somebody dressing up like a vampire going into a girl's locker room or bathroom, that's sick, Bo. We just got to stop it.
Yeah.
So, and you think they would deal with that, but they won't unless we pass this law. They had a guy from the Rock Hill area, one of the representatives, found out about it, and his daughter was in a high school there. And he tried to handle it quietly. He went to the high school and said, look, y'all going to stop this, right? And they said, no, we're not going to stop it. So unfortunately, this is the way it is in our society. Either people are scared or people are, afraid of being ostracized by the left. But, I'm not, and there are a lot of people that are not in our legislature still.
Yeah, and that's the good news. For sure. All right, let's move on. You've also been working on legislation involving tax credits for crisis pregnancy centers. Walk us through how that would work.
Yes, what a great bill that was. It came out of the Senate. Billy Garrett was one of the sponsors of that bill, and it basically what it would do is anybody who wants to contribute to a crisis pregnancy center or another organization that provides maternity services for women during their pregnancy and that kind of thing, it allows you to get a tax credit and a tax write-off for contributing to those centers. So you can contribute, I think, up to 50% of your tax liability to one of these centers. Yeah. Now, what the state's going to do is they're going to get a list of these centers, and no one center is going to be allowed to get more than 25% of all of the contributions.
Mm-hmm.
But, it will really help women. These people don't understand what these centers do, Joey. They are incredible. They help women during their pregnancy. They provide pregnancy testing, ultrasounds. They do not just that, though. They do parenting classes. They give everything. They almost become caseworkers for these girls and ladies, and they provide whatever they need. I've seen them get them on government benefits. I've seen them get them in school. I've seen them get, after the kids are born, get them in a daycare and that kind of thing. And they provide them with the things that they need. So, I mean, it's just an incredible ministry. It's an incredible service to these girls, and we've got to encourage that. And that's what this bill does. It encourages us to give to this life-saving work that these centers do.
Yeah.
So, every dollar is important.
Yeah. Well, and they do. You and I were at the Carolina Pregnancy Center gala just the other night. And Tim Tebow is going to be in Greenwood celebrating life this week as well. And so you're right, we have to support these groups. Now, speaking of that, a Senate subcommittee this week voted to advance a bill that will further restrict abortions in South Carolina. Senator Richard Cash is proposing to ban abortions from the onset of pregnancy rather than the current 6-week ban. It would have not have any exceptions for rape or incest or for fatal fetal anomalies. It would make abortion a misdemeanor, punishable with up to 2 years in prison and a $1,000 fine. Talk with us about this bill. I've heard some say that probably doesn't have a chance of coming out of the Senate this year. What are your thoughts on it?
It's already illegal. There are 3 different laws that they're breaking by shipping these abortion pills into South Carolina over the internet. We've got to enforce those laws. Mm-hmm. And so far, our state attorney general has not seen fit to do that, even though I've asked him several times. So I hope that we'll get some enforcement on this. But what they're doing is they're amending that bill and turning it into what you're talking about, this prohibiting abortion, taking the life cause and moving it forward. I may not agree with every single part of that bill. It does punish women. It does do some things that, but look, it needs to be advanced forward because it can always be amended. It'll be a different bill if it passes the floor of the Senate. And I'm certain it will advance the cause of life beyond just 6 weeks all the way back to conception. So as a general rule, I'm for that.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be for that. The chances, though, of it getting out and getting moving before the end of the year, I've got to believe are not that great. But it's no harm in trying.
Exactly.
And that's the way I feel about it.
Exactly.
We've tried before, and we need to keep trying.
Yeah. Representative John McCravy, it's always a pleasure, and I know it's going to be a busy few weeks as you guys are wrapping things up. And let's just check in, and you kind of you be our eyes and ears in these coming weeks.
Yes, sir. I'm proud to do it. Thank you, Joey.
Let me start with a question. What happens when members of your own party look at the same issue, the same facts, the same political pressure, and still come to a different conclusion than the president? Because that's exactly what just happened in Washington this week. A group of House Republicans, yes, Republicans, just broke ranks with President Donald Trump on immigration, a huge issue. Immigration was at the top of the list in the 2024 elections. They voted to protect more than 350,000 Haitian nationals from deportation. Now, this isn't just another routine vote. This is one of those moments that tells you something deeper is going on beneath the surface. Here's the situation. The House passed a measure that would extend something called temporary protected status, known as TPS, for Haitians currently living in the United States. And before we go any further, let's be clear about what that means. This is not citizenship. It's not amnesty. It's not even a path to staying permanently. It's temporary protection, basically saying your home country is too dangerous right now, so you can stay here legally, you can work, and not be deported for a limited time. In this case, we're talking about Haiti, a country dealing with gang violence, political collapse, and conditions that, by most accounts, are still extremely unstable. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting, I guess you could say. 10 Republican members crossed over to support this extension, joining Democrats to push it through. So we have a Republican majority that we can't actually count on right now. We're talking about lawmakers like Maria Elvira Salazar, Brian Fitzpatrick, Don Bacon. And these aren't random names. Many of them represent districts with large Haitian populations, people who are working jobs, raising families, and contributing to their communities, so they say. So their argument is pretty straightforward. Why deport people who are already here legally, already working, already part of the local economy? Representative Bacon put it bluntly. He said he doesn't see the goodness in deporting people who are contributing to the country. So that brings up a whole nother debate, doesn't it? On if you're here illegally, are there levels of illegality of being in our country when you shouldn't be? If you're good, can you stay? Now, the Trump administration sees it very differently. The argument from the White House is that TPS for Haiti has run its course, that conditions, they're not perfect there, no longer justify keeping hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals in the U.S. And more importantly, the broader concern is this. At what point does temporary stop being temporary? Because that's been the criticism of TPS for years. It gets extended, extended, extended again. And then there's the issue of public safety. President Trump recently pointed to a tragic case in Florida involving a Haitian national who had been granted TPS is now accused of a brutal killing. Now, supporters of the administration say that case highlights the risk. Critics say you don't build national policy around one incident. And that right there, that's the dividing line in the debate. Let me pause here, bring you into the conversation. Where do you land on this? Should TPS be strictly temporary? No exceptions, no extensions? Or are people already here working and following the law? Should there be some flexibility? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell has some great spring specials for you. My Pillows, which are regularly $49.98, the standards are now only $17.98 when you use promo code Joey. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in USA My Pillow mattress topper. Save $100 when you use my name. Get a set of My Pillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $39.98. Just go to MyPillow.com, check out the radio specials, and see all the great deals Mike Lindell has for you. Like order now and your entire order ships absolutely free. Call today, 800-893-4059, 800-893-4059, or online at MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey, and you'll get the very best deal possible. Now, back to the story here. Let's talk about what this vote actually means, because this is important. This bill is probably not going anywhere. The Senate isn't expected to take it up, and even if it did, President Trump most certainly would veto it. So this wasn't about changing policy overnight. This was about sending a message, and the vote only happened because of a rare move by Ayanna Pressley, forcing the issue onto the House floor through what's called a discharge petition. In other words, this was a pressure play to try to bring people out. But step back for a moment, because this is what it really means and why it matters. This vote shows you something that we don't always see in today's politics. Even within the same party, there are different priorities. You got one group focused on national immigration enforcement. Draw a clear line, enforce it, no exceptions. And you got another group looking at what's happening in their districts, their hospitals, their businesses, and saying, wait a second, this isn't so simple. That tension isn't going to go away anytime soon. So here's the bottom line. This isn't just about Haiti. It's not just about TPS. It's about how we define fairness, security, and responsibility in a country built on both law and opportunity. Do we apply immigration policy to the same way across the board, no matter the circumstances? Or do we make room for judgment, for nuance, for the reality of people already living and working here? That's the question, and it's one Washington still doesn't have a complete answer on yet. Now, moving on to another topic here, a CIA whistleblower is claiming that Obama-era espionage charges against him were a test run for targeting Donald Trump. Here's the story. Former CIA counterterrorism chief John Krakow said that his 2012 prosecution was a trial run for the Democrat Party's template for lawfare that was later used against President Donald Trump. Krakow is the CIA officer who led the team that captured al-Qaeda terrorist Zubaida, blew the whistle on the agency's waterboarding program over a decade ago. He was jailed for nearly 2 years after the Obama administration charged him under the Espionage Act and the Intelligence Identities Protection Act for disclosing the identity of a covert CIA officer. Krakow claims that his conviction was a test case for federal prosecutors. He argues that by testing it on a former CIA officer, the government refined the legal tactics it would later use against President Trump and members of his inner circle. Krakow said on the Hangout with Sean Hannity podcast, Brett Tolman, the former U.S. attorney from Trump 1, former U.S. attorney for Utah, said the Krakow case was the template for the Democrat Party's policy of lawfare. He claims federal prosecutors wanted to test the tactics on a nobody, meaning himself, before targeting larger political rivals, including General Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, and eventually President Donald Trump. He described a system that he says bankrupts targets, it ruins their reputations, leaving them unable to fight back. And he's right to a degree in that the federal government has broken people like Paul Manafort and others because the federal government's spending our money to go after these people. They have to use their own money to defend themselves. Krakow explained, the next thing you know, you're drowning in millions of dollars of legal debt. Your reputation is ruined. Of course, there's a deep state, and it's very dangerous, he told Hannity. He cited what he described as a classified memo exchange among senior Obama administration officials. He alleged that then CIA Director John Brennan pushed for espionage charges against him, despite what he said were concerns from the Justice Department. He said the effort was meant to force him into a costly legal defense, one that would almost ruin him. He said it's a technique that was used against Trump, and that there are people in the federal bureaucracy who know how to ruin even a president. He said if this president does something they don't like, they know exactly how they can ruin him. Now, while Caracal maintains his prosecution was a political test run, a 2013 press release from the Justice Department accused him of revealing the identity of a covert CIA officer to a journalist. Then U.S. Attorney McBride said in a statement, John Caracal betrayed the trust bestowed upon him by the United States, and he betrayed his colleagues whose secrecy is their only safety. John Caracal put the life of a covert officer at risk. He put the officer's family in danger, and he exposed our nation's vital secrets. That was the charge against him. He, of course, claims that it's not the case, that they were trying to ruin him, that they were trying to see how far the federal government could go, how far the courts would let them go in trying to take out their enemy, their domestic enemy, a political rival. And look, we've seen how far they're willing to go against Trump, haven't we? On many different levels. Is this a bit scary for you to think that our federal government does this type of thing? It's not surprising, is it? I mean, we've seen it kind of happening in front of our own eyes. But how do we stop it? How do we make sure that it doesn't happen to other people? Because if it happens to them, it can happen to you, to me, and to others. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Joining us on our guest line, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. I hope you are.
I am wonderful. Just busy week, but in a good way. And it's been busy in Columbia. Governor McMaster signed the latest income tax bill this week, cutting taxes further. I guess there's some who says, well, when are we going to take the next step and just totally eliminate income taxes? Talk about that.
Well, Joey, we're going to eliminate state income tax when I'm governor because we don't have a choice. You know, I read an article in Fox Business last week, a really great article. It was talking about like the Iron Curtain of economic development, targeting 9 states that are really growing. 2 of them, Florida and Texas, big competitors to South Carolina when it comes to attracting economic development and growth. Well, let me tell you, Florida and Texas not only, eliminated state income tax, haven't had it, they codified it into their constitution that they will never have it, and they will never have a death tax, and they will never have a wealth tax.
Yeah.
And so these are our competitors, and this is not an if, it's a now issue. And so we have to get there. People want it, right? They can see other states doing it, so now they're questioning why we can't. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody as I travel around the state. And doing it, we can do it. We have to rein in spending. Government spending, the single biggest contributor to inflation. When you talk about leveraging technology, we sit with some very antiquated technology that we have to change. We have to run efficiently. We got to get rid of, the over 80,000 regulations. We got to get rid of the ones that just don't make sense anymore, so corporations can continue to thrive and grow. And when we do that, we have surpluses in the state, and that's how we're going to get rid of our state income tax.
Yeah. Speaking of taxes, of course, yesterday was tax day in across the country. South Carolina still has not conformed with the federal government. So the one big beautiful bill, there's some elements of that we can't take advantage of. What's the latest on that?
So the Senate voted to not concur with the federal government's one big beautiful bill. I think that's terrible because, I'm hearing it from our seniors. The no tax on Social Security. My son is a barber, and he gets tips, and it was a huge help to him when he did his taxes to have no tax on tips. That's something we should be doing here in South Carolina, helping the middle class, making life more affordable. We'll see what happens. The state extended your state income tax return till October. Hoping that the General Assembly can come together and do what's right. The governor and I both agreeing that we need to conform with the one big beautiful bill to help South Carolinians, to help hardworking men and women here in our state.
Yep. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette is my guest today. Now, next week, the next SCGOP debate is in Charleston on Tuesday. Are we going to see you on the debate stage?
You are, Joey. I had said that, I know that debates are a rite of passage and that there would be some debates that I would do. And next week worked out with our schedule. So you will see me in Charleston on the debate stage. Excited to do that. It's been, I'm assuming it's going to be a great night. I hope everybody tunes in.
Yep, for sure. Campaign finance reports were filed last week, and of the 6 GOP candidates running in the June 9th primary, you and Attorney General Alan Wilson were at the top of the list, raising just over $1 million each. What does this say about your campaign?
Well, that has been it's going great. If you look overall, I think they pointed out that in the last 3 filing periods, I have outraised everybody by over $600,000. We have been, on air and getting my message out to people. I'm just humbled, actually. Every filing cycle that so many people want to support and give their treasure to make sure that they get a business governor, somebody who understands how to tackle the problems that a growing, prosperous state has. And I'm always very, very humbled by the support that happens every quarter. It has continued to grow, and we only have 54 more days, Joey, until we get to primary day. So we got to get everybody excited, get everybody to circle June 9th on their calendar, because we need to do better than 13% coming out to vote in this primary.
It's just crazy, isn't it, when you look at the few number of people who actually vote in the primaries. A lot of people like to complain about things, but they don't participate. Why do you think that is? How do we get people interested and turn them out to vote on June 9th?
I wish I knew that. If I could answer that question, Joey, I'd probably sleep easier. I don't understand why they don't feel the same way we do, that so many men and women who have served have lost their lives so that we have the right to vote. And in so many countries, they fight for that right. And so many here just kind of shrug it off and be like, well, I don't really have time, or I'm busy that day. What people don't realize here in South Carolina is our election really is the primary. And when you don't get out and vote, then you really don't have a say in how your state is going to be run. And so I guess it just takes all of us working together, Joey, to make sure that people remember, they circle their calendar, they understand how important it is. And my dad used to say, you get the government you vote for, And like you said, if you don't vote, then you don't complain.
Yep.
Because you're part of the problem. You are not part of the solution.
I mean, it almost makes you want to just carry a voter list around with you, and when someone's complaining about something, you look them up real quick and see if they voted. If they didn't, sorry, you don't get that privilege.
That's a great idea, Joe. You know what I'm going to have you do? I'm going to have you be part of my team, and you're going to travel with me, and you're going to be the guy in charge of the voter list. We'll make sure we make it easy for you to sort through that.
We'll pre-screen everybody here get the complainers out if they're not participating for sure. So, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, it's always a pleasure. Be safe out there, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thanks, Joey. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend.
Peg and I were out walking the dogs in the backyard over the weekend. And, as the weather warms up, fire ants are starting to become active again. They're just popping up everywhere. This isn't something that you want to ignore. For some, a sting is just painful and annoying. We certainly don't want Jesse and Simon to step in one of these and be stung. We certainly don't want to be stung either. Others, this can be life-threatening, literally. This hits close to home for the team at Patriot Pest Management. The owner, Keith, lost his brother-in-law to a severe allergic reaction from fire ant stings before help could even arrive. They've seen firsthand just how serious this can be. You need to take it seriously, too. That's why they take a different approach. Store-bought products only treat what you see, but Patriot Pest Management treats your entire yard, eliminating both the mounds and the underground colonies, and they back it with a 1-year guarantee. So don't take chances when it comes to your family safety. Take your yard back and enjoy peace of mind this season. Call Patriot Pest Management today at 864-895-7299. That's 895-7299, or online at patriotpestmgt.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.